Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where dying wasn't just the end, it was the show. Imagine being wrapped in linen, painted in gold, and sealed inside a pyramid designed to outlast entire civilizations. Sand clings to your sandals, incense curls in the still air, and hieroglyphs watch silently from every wall. You're not just a body, you're a god in waiting. But let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from a dark bedroom in Boston or a quiet tent in the Rockies, drop your location and local time in the comments. It's oddly comforting knowing who else is drifting off with you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the glare of the Egyptian sun, a distant drumbeat echoing across the Nile. The pharaoh has died, or maybe ascended, depending on your religious persuasion, and the kingdom is in mourning, or pretending to be at least. For you, a humble servant in the court, this means one thing: weeks of chaos. Because in Egypt, death was a production. The body must be purified, washed with palm wine, organs removed, intestines, lungs, liver, and stomach, all carefully placed in their own canopic jars, each topped with a protective deity head. The brain? Unceremoniously yanked out through the nose with a long metal hook. Sorry about that. You're helping the priest apply resin to the skin, binding layer after layer of linen around the corpse. 70 days of ritual. Incantations murmured through the desert heat. Every wrap is precise. Magic spells tucked between folds like notes in a sacred diary. The pharaoh must be recognizable in the afterlife after all. Nobody wants to show up to the field of reeds looking like a crumpled towel. Mainstream historians agree. The funerary process was more than religion. It was politics, propaganda, and prestige. The tomb wasn't just a resting place. It was a billboard for eternal glory. But here's the fringe tidbit. Some believe tombs were rigged with traps, poison needles, false doors, curses carved in red ochre, not to harm intruders directly, just to freak them out enough to leave the loot alone. Whether those warnings were literal or just PR is, well, historians still argue whether ancient tombs really housed deadly mechanisms or if we've just watched The Mummy too many times. You trudge through limestone corridors deep beneath a stepped pyramid. Torches flicker. The air grows thick with centuries of dust. You're laying down polished gold furniture, sculpted panther statues, and an unsettling number of jars filled with honey-dipped meats. Beside the pharaoh's body, a crook and flail, symbols of power, yes, but also kind of like the original afterlife luggage tags. And then, the whispers begin. You've heard the rumors that some of the pharaoh's closest attendants aren't leaving this tomb, that their loyalty must be eternal, literally. One older man jokes that he's hoping for a quick poison, not the slow suffocation method. Everyone chuckles nervously. It's the kind of laugh you make when you're not sure if you're next. Some Egyptologists deny the stories of servants being killed to accompany royals in death, pointing to clay Shabti figures that may have been used instead as symbolic substitutes. But others note burials where young skeletons were interred nearby, with signs of trauma or hurried embalming. Did some really follow their masters into the afterlife by force? Or did they volunteer, swept up in divine destiny and the promise of paradise? Either way, the tomb is sealed. You help push the great limestone slab into place. Sand crunches under your feet. You whisper one last prayer, perhaps for the pharaoh, but more likely for yourself. The priests chant louder. They want the gods to hear. You just want to go home. Above ground, the kingdom celebrates. Well, some celebrate. The heir throws a festival to announce his coronation, and nobody dares to look too sad. You're handed a palm wine drink and told to smile. Because in Egypt, death is just another sunrise, if you're royal. And in the dry hush of the sealed tomb, the pharaoh lies waiting, surrounded by riches, spells, and maybe a few unlucky servants. Whether or not the afterlife is real, one thing's certain. This guy died more glamorously than most people live. The smoke stings your eyes as you watch the ship bob gently on the tide, flames licking the air like it's a feast. You've been to funerals before, but this is something else. A Viking chieftain has died, and tonight, the entire village is throwing him a goodbye party so wild it might bring down the aurora. It starts, of course, with drinking. Buckets of mead slosh freely, and you're handed a horn before you've even stepped off your reindeer hide boots. There's a storyteller standing on a crate, shouting tales of the chieftain's conquests, sea serpents fought, kingdoms raided, a chicken stolen from a Saxon monastery that definitely cursed him. Everyone laughs. You sip the mead. It tastes like fermented honey and poor decisions. His body has been dressed in armor, polished chainmail, sword at his side, a brooch of silver shaped like Thor's hammer. You help lay him in the boat. His ship is modest, but it gleams with care, oars tucked beside him, his shield resting like a halo above his head. Even in death, a Viking must look ready for war, just in case Valhalla has a door fee. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Viking funerals weren't always fiery boat send-offs. Most Norse folk were buried or cremated on land, often under mounds. But for high-status warriors, the spectacle mattered. Some ships were burned, others were buried whole. And some had both, a burned ship buried under a mound, just to be safe. Double coverage, like eternal life insurance. Now for the weird bit, the human sacrifice. A young thrall, a female servant usually, is chosen to accompany the dead. She's paraded around the village, given mushroom tea, you think, and treated like royalty for a day. There's singing, there's dancing, but there's also a shadow in her eyes. She knows where this leads. You don't want to watch what comes next, but you do. She is led to the boat where the body lies waiting. The village seer performs the rites, runes chanted, smoke trailing in strange spirals. And then, a moment of silence, broken only by the gulls. Some accounts, like those of Ahmad ibn Fadlan, a 10th century Arab traveler, describe this with unsettling detail. The thrall is stabbed repeatedly by priestesses, sometimes even smothered, depending on the ritual variant. Whether these descriptions were exaggerated for shock value or represent common practice is still debated. Historians still argue whether this was ritual devotion, forced coercion, or something lost in translation across cultures. The boat is set alight. Flames devour the timber as the tide carries it away. You stand with the others, watching the smoke twist upward like a staircase to Valhalla. The silence is reverent. Even the rowdiest of warriors hush as the fire eats away the past. Then someone sneezes, and a joke breaks the spell. Hope he packed socks. You laugh. It's nervous, but necessary. You've just witnessed something ancient, strange, and disturbingly beautiful, and a little horrifying. You look around. Some are crying, some are grinning, and one man is just very focused on his third mead horn. As night falls, the celebration resumes. There's more drinking, more stories. One man claims he saw the flames take the shape of a raven. Another insists he heard the chieftain's laughter, in the crackle of the fire. "That was the mushrooms," someone whispers. You retreat to the edge of the gathering, letting the crackle of the bonfire soothe your nerves. The stars overhead look different tonight, sharper somehow. Or maybe that's the cold creeping in. Either way, you feel something ancient has passed through you. Back in your own time, you'll remember the spectacle, the music, the heat of the flames on your face, the odd smell of burning boat tar and braided beard oil. It's a lot for one evening, but that's how Vikings did it. Death wasn't an ending. It was a headline. And as the last embers drift into the fjord breeze, you wonder what stories they'll tell about your funeral. Hopefully, fewer mushrooms. The banquet hall is thick with the scent of roasted meat and overripe fruit. Somewhere near the back, a musician plucks the same 6 notes on a harp over and over again, and you're trying to ignore the fact that the emperor has now eaten 7 helpings of stewed lamprey. Yes, lamprey, the horrifying vampire eel of the Roman Empire's culinary dreams. You're at the table of Claudius, or Domitian, or maybe Elagabalus. The details blur, but the drama stays constant. The food is rich, the toga's tighter by the hour, and the emperor is sweating through his laurels. And then it happens. A burp, a wheeze, a very awkward silence. The ruler slumps over his plate. Some gasp, others freeze. And you? You slowly put down your fig tart and consider pretending to be a statue. You've just witnessed one of the more debated death scenes in imperial history. One version of Claudius's death claims he simply ate himself into oblivion, died mid-banquet from indigestion or a ruptured intestine. Another says his physician slipped poison into the mushrooms, or maybe it was his wife Agrippina, hoping to speed up her son Nero's promotion. The truth? Historians still argue whether Claudius died from natural causes, an assassin's clever cooking, or just tragically bad seafood. And while lamprey stew is a crime in its own right, the idea of an emperor literally exploding at dinner is too theatrical not to savor. You're shuffled out of the hall as panic spreads. Someone yells for the physicians. Others start wiping goblets, just in case. One man makes a quiet, tactical exit through the kitchen. Smart. You pass the imperial kitchens, where slaves scramble to hide wine amphorae and pretend they definitely didn't see anything suspicious. The head cook is weeping into a handful of leeks. Later, the death is spun to the public as a peaceful passing. The emperor was received by the gods, they say. But backroom whispers tell a juicier tale. Poisoned feather used to help him along, or a tainted dish slipped between courses. Your favorite? The version where he starts choking. The servant panics, and someone slaps him too hard on the back, accidentally helping the poison spread. Oops. Here's your mainstream historical moment. Roman emperors often died suspiciously. Of the first 12 emperors, at least 8 met untimely or unnatural ends. Poison, stabbing, clubbing, even mysterious falls down staircases. It was practically a job hazard. Being adored by millions also meant a long line of relatives ready to speed up your succession plan. And now, for a fringe detail, some Romans believed death during a feast was a blessing. Dying with a full belly, surrounded by music and company, was seen by some as a sign the gods favored you. Unless, of course, your food had been laced with arsenic. Then it's just poetic irony. In the chaos that follows, you slip away into the hallway, past marble statues and flickering oil lamps. You find a small fountain and splash cold water on your face. Somewhere behind you, someone's arguing about succession. Already. The emperor's not even cold. Or maybe he's very cold by now. Hard to say. The night drags on. Torches are lit. Guards are doubled. A Senate meeting is hastily scheduled at dawn, and through it all, you realize that the most dangerous seat in Rome isn't on the battlefield. It's at the head of the dining table. You dream later of lavish meals gone wrong, pies filled with daggers, wine that turns to ink, grapes with tiny skulls carved into them. You wake up sweating, the scent of roasted eel still haunting your nostrils. You swear off imperial banquets forever. Until you get invited to the next one, of course, with better mushrooms this time. Maybe your boots crunch against the frost-bitten grass as you step onto a quiet field at dawn. Mist hangs low, curling around your ankles like it's nervous too. Across from you, a man in a powdered wig is adjusting his gloves with the intensity of someone tying shoelaces before a job interview, or, say, a duel. You don't know whether to laugh or tremble, maybe both. Because what started as a snide pamphlet or a sarcastic jab at a party has escalated into the 18th century version of Twitter beef, a pistol duel at sunrise, and there's a strong chance one of you won't be walking away. Or if you're unlucky, you will walk away, bleeding, infected, infamous. The seconds, your respective friends/referees exchange polite bows. Pistols are presented, polished to a mirror shine. The rules are reviewed. 10 paces, turn, fire, possibly die. It's all very civil. Mainstream history fact: duels were often illegal but still socially enforced. In Europe and early America, especially among aristocrats and politicians, dueling was a bizarre code of honor. Men risked death to defend everything from political opinions to dance floor insults. Alexander Hamilton famously met his end this way. He was shot by Aaron Burr in 1804 during a duel so notorious it nearly tanked Burr's career, even though he technically won. You breathe deeply, trying not to think about how ridiculous this is. The pistols are absurdly inaccurate. Half of these duels miss entirely. But that's kind of the point. It's about sending a message, making a statement, flexing the kind of masculinity that says, I could shoot you, but I'd rather traumatize everyone here instead. A fringe tidbit? Some duels involved multiple rounds. If no one was satisfied with the result, or if the wound was deemed insufficiently dramatic, they'd reload and go again. There are documented cases where duelists fired, missed, then walked up and stabbed each other with their swords instead. When pistols failed, honor demanded escalation. You stand in position, 10 paces. Your hand tightens around the grip. Your opponent sneezes. You both flinch. A second too early, someone coughs. And then, bang. The shot rings out. You're not sure who fired first. Smoke curls from both barrels. You feel a burning sting across your side, but you're still standing. So is he. A second of confusion. Then the seconds rush in. There's blood. Yours? His? Hard to say. No one seems sure what to do now. This is where it gets strange. Your opponent lowers his pistol, gives you a curt nod, and announces, I believe our quarrel is now settled. Everyone claps, awkwardly. You feel faint. A doctor appears out of nowhere. Where was he earlier? And starts fussing over your coat. And you begin to realize something. This wasn't about killing. It was about spectacle. But for others, the consequences were far more real. Take the case of Évariste Galois, the brilliant young French mathematician. In 1832, at just 20 years old, he died in a duel, allegedly over a woman, though some suspect political motives. The night before, he scribbled mathematical theories in a flurry, certain he wouldn't survive the morning. He was right. His opponent shot him in the stomach. He died the next day. Historians still argue whether Galois' duel was romantic drama political assassination, or the tragic end of a mind ahead of its time. Back on your own field, the duel wraps up with surprising efficiency. Your opponent is led off to a waiting carriage. You're handed a brandy and told to walk it off. Later, your wound festers slightly, but you survive, mostly with bruised ribs and a slightly enhanced reputation. People nod differently when they pass you now, but the story spreads, not just of the duel, but of the aftermath. A local poet pens a dramatic reinterpretation where both of you die in a storm of gunfire. A painter gets your hair color wrong, but captures your heroic grimace perfectly. Before you know it, you're the star of a morality play, a cautionary tale, and a romantic novel, none of which you authorized. Because in the end, death isn't the only way to become a legend. Sometimes you just need a foggy morning, a pistol, and a bit of flair. The square is buzzing, but not with joy. You're hemmed in by a restless crowd, the cobblestones cold beneath your feet. Above, the clouds hang low, thick as cream, like the sky is trying to avoid watching what's about to happen. You tilt your head to see the scaffold, and there he is. A wiry man in tattered robes steps forward, bound but grinning as the executioner adjusts the angle of the guillotine blade. The crowd hisses and murmurs. He turns to them, eyes gleaming, and shouts, "Don't worry, folks. I'll try not to blink." The crowd gasps. You cover your mouth. Did he really just say that? He did. You just witnessed the final moments of Georges Danton. Or maybe it was the Marquis de Saint-Just, or maybe some lesser-known revolutionary who went out with gallows humor. Accounts vary, names change, but the death is legendary. Guillotines were the rock concerts of 18th century France. People brought snacks, sold souvenirs, commented on the height of the blade or how fast the body twitched. It was macabre, sure, but it was also strangely efficient. Mainstream historians note that the guillotine was marketed as humane, quick, clean, a gift from science. It replaced older, messier methods like hacking or hanging or burning with a sleek Enlightenment-approved snap. The idea was to democratize death. Noble or peasant, all heads fell the same. But here's a fringe detail for you. The blink theory. Some believe that for a few seconds after decapitation, the brain might still register light, sound, awareness. It's still debated, but letters and rumors from the time claimed severed heads showed emotion. One eyewitness swore he saw a convict frown at the executioner post-slice. Was it a spasm? A myth? Historians still argue whether post-decapitation consciousness exists, or if it's just a collective shiver passed through generations. And then there are the disappearers. Take the tale of the alchemist Fulcanelli, who was rumored to have vanished just before arrest in the 1920s France. Not died, vanished. Some claim he found the secret of immortality and slipped out of time itself. Others insist he faked his death using stand-ins and staged cremations. Either way, no body, no grave, just legends, or Hypatia of Alexandria, philosopher, astronomer, and all-around intellectual powerhouse. She was murdered by a mob in the 5th century, torn apart in the streets. But some fringe theorists argue she never died, but was smuggled out by loyal students and lived in hiding, passing her knowledge through secret manuscripts. Romantic? Absolutely. Likely? Probably not. But compelling? You bet. And what about Rasputin? Poisoned, shot, beaten, drowned, and still allegedly blinking. His death, a Russian nesting doll of mayhem, became a full-blown folklore. Some said he whispered curses even after being tossed into the icy Neva River. Others claimed his body resisted decay. At a certain point, You wonder if death was just a strong suggestion. Now, you shift in the crowd again. The square smells like smoke and sweat and something faintly metallic. Another man is being led up the steps. He's older, quiet, but before kneeling, he mutters something in Latin and stares out over the rooftops. The guillotine falls. No blink this time. Just silence. The crowd begins to disperse, some reverent, some disappointed. You remain still, wondering what it is about death that fascinates us so. Not just the end, but the how, the exit strategy, the performance. For some, it's defiance. For others, a vanishing act. And for the rare few, it's a joke told seconds before the curtain falls. You wander away slowly, the noise fading behind you. In your mind, you hear the echo of that rebel's final quip. You picture Hypatia's silent escape, Rasputin's sodden silhouette, the anonymous martyrs who grinned at the gallows and whispered prayers through cracked lips. Some feared death. Others met it like an old friend arriving late to a party. And you? You're just a traveler in time, brushing past the unforgettable exits of history's most theatrical farewells. The crowd has gone now. The torches are out. The guillotine stands quiet under the gray hush of morning. Somewhere, a bird sings, as if unaware of what just happened here, or perhaps in spite of it. You take one last look over your shoulder, but the stories feel softer now, more distant, the edges blurred like a dream already fading. You begin to walk, slowly, each step heavier, gentler, as if the earth itself has shifted pace. The sharpness of swords, the flare of fire, the roar of mobs, it's all far away. Only the echo remains, nestled in the folds of history like a whisper under blankets. The great deaths, those wild, glorious, or absurd farewells, become threads in the vast, sleepy tapestry of the human story. Some were mourned, some celebrated, some questioned for centuries. But now, as the wind stills and the sky brightens faintly, they rest. So do you. Let your breath slow. Let the silence stretch longer between thoughts. The world can be wild and ridiculous, and full of people who once believed that mushrooms, honor, or eels could change their fate. But here, in this moment, there's only stillness. You did well to wander with me tonight, through pyramids and pyres, duels and legends. But now, the story's told, the lights are dimmed, and the night is yours again. Close your eyes, let go of the noise, and remember, even the most epic death can lead to the quietest sleep.